Today I'm going to be making a dye bath out of mint. I love mint. I love the smell of mint. It's great. And it's one of those great herbs that you can dye inside your house as well. But I thought I'd stay outside. The weather's still nice, and I try to stay outside as much as possible. So this morning I was in my dye garden harvesting the mint, and there was a lot of it, so I'll be doing a lot of dyeing today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up this bucket, and I will fill it up 2/3 of the way, and then top it up with water. And I'll let it simmer on a heat source. I'm not going to boil it because it will have an impact on the color. And what I'll do is I'll go back every 10 minutes and check on the color. I'll probably let it simmer for about an hour. And so I'll be checking it every 10 minutes, looking at the color, making sure that I'm pulling as much color as I can out of it. Mint has a great history. It goes back all the way to 300 BCE. And the ancient Greeks used it to clean tables. Can you imagine walking into a dinner and smelling mint everywhere? That would be fantastic. And the Romans used it for culinary purposes, and that's what we're probably most familiar with its use. If you've had a mint julep before, or a mojito, oftentimes you've been using mint. Mint is used in toothpaste. So it's got so many purposes, or so many uses for it. It also has medicinal purposes as well. There's vitamin A and vitamin C in it. So it's quite great. And so I love dyeing with it, and really looking forward to it. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to make 2 dye baths. One of them will be with alum, and the other one is going to be with iron. And what we'll do is we'll look at how the mordants have an impact on the color of the yarn. So I'm going to continue doing this. Again, what I'm doing is I'm putting the leaves in and the soft stalks, but the hard ones I'm going to not put them in. Like this one's a little too hard, so I'll just take the leaves off and put it in the dye bath. And I'm going to be doing this for a little while, so I will circle back with you in a bit and we'll check on the dye pot. It was pouring rain outside, so I came inside, and I mentioned earlier that the smell of mint when it's cooking smells great. So the kitchen smells absolutely wonderful. So what I've done is I have removed all of the mint from my dye pot and took it out, put it through a strainer, and then put it in my garden, back in my garden. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish making the dye pot, and I'm going to put mordant in here. And the mordant that I'm going to use is alum. I'm going to use 2 mordants today. I'm going to use alum, and I'm going to use iron. And so I'm going to do the iron dye bath outside and the alum dye bath inside. And you can do mordant, you can mordant your wool in various stages, but I'm choosing to do it in the dye bath today. So I will be putting the alum in here. And so in order to figure out how much alum I put in my dye pot, you really have to measure your wool. So I'm going to do 10 skeins of the same weight of yarn, and the alum is 10% of the total weight of yarn, and you measure your yarn when it's dry, not wet. So I'll be putting in 10% of the total amount of yarn. And again, if I do 10 skeins of yarn, that's really, I'm doing the total of what it says on 1 skein of yarn. I'm also going to put in cream of tartar as well. Cream of tartar is 5%. So to make it really easy, if I'm putting in 2 tablespoons of alum in my dye bath, I put in 1 tablespoon of cream of tartar. So I'm going to do that right now. What I like to do is I like to put a small mason jar in, and I like to look at my dye bath, see what it looks like, and then I'm going to add my alum. And you don't want to put too much alum in. You don't want to exceed much more than 10%. 15% could be okay, but what happens is when you put in too much alum, your yarn gets bristly, and it does damage the yarn, and you don't want to damage the yarn. So I really like one of the benefits of putting it in the mason jar is you get to see what it looks like, see whether or not it changes any of the color. Also, you'll be able to see whether or not you've been able to mix all of the alum in it. So I'm going to put that back in. And this, I've let this cool down a little bit. I wouldn't be able to hold a mason jar in my hand if it was boiling. So this has cooled down a little bit. Put in some cream of tartar. And again, it's half of what I put in, half of the alum. So in total, it's 5% of the total amount of the weight of the yarn. Mix that up. Put that in. And I will mix it around. Now, I mentioned that I'm going to do 2 dye baths. This is the one with alum in it. I'm now going to prepare my iron dye bath. And I've got the dye pot sitting outside. I just have to add the iron. And I make my own iron. What I do is I get a jar and I will put 2/3 water and 1/3 vinegar. And then I will look for some rusty nails or anything I can find with rust on it and stick it in here and let it sit for 6 weeks. This is about 6 months old, and I've been using it sparingly over that time. And so what I want to do is I want to show you what really happens when you put iron in a dye bath, because it definitely enhances the color, makes it darker. So I'll take some of this. And I'm going to add the iron now. And again, you add a little bit at a time. Don't put a lot in, because what you want to do is you want to see gradually how the color changes. But you can already see that it's getting darker. I will add a little bit more, and then I'll shake it out. So you can see now how it's significantly darker, and it's got a nice green to it. It's got a dark green. That's going to be quite nice. And I will look at that and keep checking on it over a period of time, just to see if it's the color, truly the color that I want. So basically now I've got 2 dye baths going. I've got the one with alum in it, and I've got the one outside with iron. I'm going to put my yarn in it after an hour. I want to let this sit. I want to let the mordant take shape in the dye bath. Come back with my wet yarn, and I'll put it in, and we'll see what happens. I've been letting the yarn simmer for about an hour, and I'm outside now, as you can tell, and this is the iron dye pot. So I've got iron mordant in here, and I did 2 again. I did the iron and the alum because I wanted to compare the color. And what I'm going for today is a green. I want a beautiful sage green. So I've been peeking at this for the last hour, so I've got a little bit of an advantage. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing so far, but the proof is when you pull it out and take a look. So here we go. Yeah, that's really nice. This is the color I was going for. I wanted a sage green, and this is I think bang on. It's quite nice. So the iron really brought out the green in the mint. And I was peeking at it for about an hour, looking at it to see if I needed to tweak it or adjust the color with using iron. And I really like this color. Very happy with it. I want to show you this color compared to the alum. The alum came out and didn't really take much of a green color to it. It stayed yellow. It's got a nice warm yellow color, but again, today I was going for green. I wanted green. And so the iron definitely is the better mordant for me when I'm going chasing a green color. So very, very happy with it. And I will be doing more dyeing this afternoon. I just wanted to go over the steps with you one more time. So, and I'm going to focus on the iron because the iron was the one that I really was excited about, and it was the color that I wanted. So for mint, I filled a pot. I filled it 2/3 full with fresh mint. And I filled it up with water, and I just topped it up with water, and then let it simmer for 2 hours. And then, but I didn't let it boil. I let it simmer. Took all of the mint out, put it back in my garden, and I put mordant in. and I put 2 mordants. One of them was alum, but it was the iron that really brought out the color. You have to be very careful with your iron. You have to look at it, and one mistake you can make is just put too much iron in at once, and it will darken to a color that you may not be happy with. It's a lot easier to adjust from lighter to darker, because once you go darker, it's very difficult to adjust back. So anyway, I'm very happy with it. What I'm going to do now is wash it and hang it up to dry, and there we go. So hope you enjoyed this session, and have a great week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.